Welcome to the Pub Sports Radio College Basketball Closing Time Show, Saturday, January 23rd. Ian Cameron and Conor Mack, and we're ready to break down the Saturday college basketball card. It's a busy card. We've got an hour, actually less than that, because I have a show right after this, so we're going to get right to it. Kansas, Oklahoma, top of the rotation, noon Eastern. This game tips off next hour. Kansas -1, total 141, 142 in this game. You look at it, Oklahoma, certainly on their best day, more than capable of winning this game. And we have seen Kansas at times, have some struggles here and there. They're only 2-2 straight up on the road. This has been a very good home court. 7-1 straight up, 6-2 against the number this year for the Oklahoma Sooners. We talked about they've had some injuries, including to Brady Manick recently, but it looks like everybody's back, everybody's healthy. And this team, I think, I would lean Oklahoma here, to be honest with you, Conor. I mean, they played Kansas back on January 9th, a couple weeks ago at Fog Allen. They really played Kansas tough, lost by 4, covered the number as 7-point dogs. They followed that up with blowout wins against bad teams, but nevertheless, TCU and Kansas State, they won 82-46, 76-50. It's a team playing good basketball. You worry about whether they can handle the size of McCormick and company for this Kansas team. Down low, but nevertheless, I mean, I think they've got what it takes here to get the job done. Kansas, like I said, on the road, other than blowing out TCU and, beating West Virginia when they were kind of vulnerable at the time, you look at recent road performances for them, they lose at Oklahoma State. They get blown out by Baylor, although cover because of a fortuitous banked in 3. I mean, a brutal beat if you had Baylor in that game. I don't know. I think Oklahoma might pull this one out here. I think it'll be close. It'll be a competitive game, and you're in a situation here where kind of wish you were getting, maybe a point or two more with Oklahoma, but still, even at +1, +1.5, it's not my favorite bet, but I would lean definitely, and I might play Oklahoma actually for something small in this game. Conor, what's your take on it?
I'm in line with you. I wish I could just get a couple more. I wish this was +3, 3.5. I'm leaning though Oklahoma. We'll see. This is a big game for them. You always hear they're kind of frauds. Just on paper they're good. Can they? I don't think this is a great Kansas team. Not a top elite one, at least. It's solid. They have shooting issues at times. I think Oklahoma here at home is the side. I'll take the point with them, or just take a money line. But I have a play on them as well. Oklahoma.
All right, both of us liking the Sooners a little bit. As far as the total is concerned, what is the total? 142.5 right now in this game.
Yeah.
I know someone's asking in the chat. Kansas has, gone over the total their last 2 games. In fact, they're 5-1 to the over their last 6 games. Oklahoma on the other. Oklahoma, though, to me, has slowed their pace down dramatically. They've played pretty good defense their last few games. So, and they've been an under machine. I mean, they're 8-1 to the under their last 9. So, to me, it's tricky with the total. I'm looking at the series history as well. 2 of the last 3 have gone under. I think I'd lean under just because it's such an early game as well. It's a big game.
Too.
You got 2 teams looking to really show up here in a big conference game like this. Certainly, it is for Oklahoma. They really need wins like this if they're going to have any hopes of being in the tournament. So I would lean under the total a little bit in this one. Let's go to Auburn, South Carolina, another early noon Eastern tip. 2-point favorites here, South Carolina, 153 the total. I'll tell you what, Auburn's just been a money train for me since they got Sharif Cooper back. I see no reason to deviate from that. I certainly am not sold on South Carolina being the better of these 2 teams, especially with post-Cooper addition to the lineup for Auburn, where they've played better. They've covered some numbers. They did lose against Arkansas on the road last week, but they led early. They let it slip away, but they still took Arkansas right down to the wire at Bud Walton Arena, which is never an easy place to win. This isn't that same home court for South Carolina. I think Auburn can win the game. You give me 2.5 with Auburn, I'll take it. Conor, what do you think here, Auburn, South Kakalaki?
I agree with you. South Carolina's. They've been they're not very good at home. They're susceptible. I think they can, they're not very good. And I'm with you. We've been both since Sharif Cooper on Auburn here. I will grab the 2.5 or take a money line. I think they can win it even outright. And I lean towards this over. I know it's at 150 54, but I think points will be scored. I think we can get over the total here.
I would agree with the total opinion as well. That's the way I would go with the total over this 152.5. Virginia Tech, Syracuse. We've got Syracuse 1.5 point home favorites. Total 141.5 in this game. We did see Syracuse show up against Miami, and Jim Boeheim ripped this team's zone defense following the game against, what was it, Pittsburgh, where they give up 97 to Pitt. That's pretty embarrassing considering Pitt's not a great offensive team by any stretch of the imagination. But boy, Jimmy B got their attention. They played much better at the defensive end against Miami in their last game, the Syracuse Orange, blowing out the Hurricanes. So good bounce back performance from them. But the problem with Syracuse most of this season is they have one really good game, and maybe you don't really trust them to bounce back the next time. I've said it all along. I'm very, very much a fan of this Virginia Tech team. Mike Young's one of my favorite coaches going. They are a little bit banged up going into this game. A couple players questionable. So that's what's leaving me a little bit leery of backing them here, but I would still lean Hokies. I mean, I'm not sold on Syracuse being the better of these two teams at all, even after a bounce back against Miami the last game. Connor, what's your take here, Hokies and Syracuse?
Yeah, I'm not sold on the Orangemen as well. They had a great game, and I was on Miami. They just laid an egg. Bad. That was bad. But I lean for Va-Tech here. I lean the over a little bit. Va-Tech was an over machine their last couple of games. The Duke one just went under, and the Wake went under. But I think this would be up and down. I think we can get over this total of 140.5. I lean Va-Tech. They're just getting a point. You basically pick them. But I like the over 140.5 here. I think we can get over this total.
And you know what? Another thing that is good, I think, for this matchup for Virginia Tech is, you got to be able to shoot threes. They can do that at a reasonable percentage, 34.9% three. That's not bad. And you got to be able to do that when you're facing this 2-3 zone. And we've seen Syracuse somehow give up big, wide open looks from the perimeter, which they typically don't do when they're locked in. So I would lean Virginia Tech, and I would also lean over the total as well with you, with 141.5 showing as the total there. Next up, UConn and Creighton as we go to the Big East. Creighton, 8-point favorites here, 138.5 the total in this one. And suddenly the trains come off the tracks just a little bit here for the Creighton Blue Jays. No question about that. It's been more of a struggle for them of late. All of a sudden, as we've seen here, they had the home loss earlier in conference play against Marquette, but suddenly the home court is not unbeatable anymore as they lose again at home to Providence, 74-70 in their last game, outright as like 9.5-point favorites. And I liked Providence in that game for sure. UConn, we've talked about them, that they have really slowed it down this year from a pace standpoint. But that's been showing in their totals. And I think that shows in this total. And also Creighton, you look at them, 5-1 to the under for this Creighton team in their last 6 games. I think it's because they've had to deal with a ton of injuries, and they have a slew of guys that are currently dealing with injuries for this basketball team. Zagorowski's been banged up a little bit. They haven't been shooting the ball as well. Defensively, actually, they've been pretty solid during this run, but you combine the improved defense with the lack of consistent offense, and that's what makes Creighton 5 of their last 6 games to the under. But I think you're seeing an adjustment here, and I think that's going to provide some value over this total. I mean, you're talking 138 right here with this total for a Creighton home game. You're not going to see that very often. Again, UConn really slows it down under Danny Hurley now compared to the way he coached and the way he would scheme his offenses at Rhode Island when he coached there. But I think that's adjusted for in this total. Creighton obviously didn't shoot the ball well the last few games. I think that maybe has pushed this total down a little bit to the high 130s instead of maybe it being in the low to mid 140s. So I think there's value here. I'm going to go over with UConn and Creighton. I wouldn't step in front of Creighton here. I know UConn's played pretty good. And they're certainly, and the way Creighton's playing, maybe you do take the points with UConn, but I just don't want to be on the wrong end of when Creighton wakes up from this little funk they're in. And something tells me maybe that could be today. Connor, what's your thoughts here with UConn Creighton?
That's why I stayed off it. I could see Creighton have a huge bounce back, shoot the ball well and this is where they love being at home. This is where a big win come. But I thought it was a lot of points. If I had a free pick on this one, I take the points with UConn, but I don't love it. Obviously, I'm not betting it. Just a small lean. The few injuries with UConn, kind of on both sides, are banged up a little bit. I'd take the points, the 8, but I don't love this one. I could see Creighton get hot, and I could see them winning by 10, so I had to stay off.
All right, next up on the slate, as we go down the card, we've got, and you know what? You're going to see these Saturday cards for the next month before we get to conference tournaments, and you're going to think, boy, I got to bet this, I got to bet that. This is the perfect time to slow down and ease up a little bit with volume. Conference, especially the middle to back end of the conference season, rematch situations, motivation concerns, injuries mount, it becomes a very, very tricky part of the season to handicap. And I'm going to say, for me, it is, because I can tell you right now, my strength in college basketball is November, December, first month and a half of the season. I always do extremely well. I did again this year. And then January to mid-February, until we get to conference tournaments, it's more of a grind. Like, the results have been up and down and more inconsistent. In fact, more down than up for me lately. So, but that's been year in and year out. And then conference tournaments, NCAA tournament arrive, and I heat up again. And I find I do very well with that, because you're not handicapping motivation and scheduling spots and all this nonsense. It's just about matchups. And that's where I thrive, I think, as an analyst and a handicapper, breaking down the matchups. And the NCAA tournament, that's what it's all about. You don't have to worry about, other intangibles and situations. So this is always a good time of year where I preach, be a little bit more conservative. And if you're going to bet high volume, make it high volume but low units. Don't do high volume big units, because that's really when you can just completely crush your bankroll if you have a bad day. And we don't want to see anyone do that. Arkansas Vanderbilt next game. Arkansas 7.5-point road favorites, 153 the total in this one. Arkansas has definitely had their struggles. There's no doubt they haven't played great lately. I think this just sets up, though, for them to be, and I think you're getting a discount because of their recent struggles. Vanderbilt was talking about quitting on the season, all right, just recently, their basketball program, because of the way things have gone with them this year. So, how much is motivation really going to impact this team going forward here? I'm not so sure. They haven't played very good here in the SEC. This is a step down. Arkansas's played some really tough teams lately. I mean, they've faced the gauntlet here. Alabama, they faced a resurgent Auburn team. They faced some really good competition as of late. This ain't one of them. I think if Arkansas is going to get right, bounce back, I think they'll win this game. I think they got a chance to cover. I'm going to have a small bet here for me. Arkansas laying the 7.5. C-Mac, what do you like here?
Yeah, I'm on Arkansas. I like the 7.5. I think it's a good bounce back spot. I'm worried a little bit, 7.5, but I think they can get it done. Vandy's they're not very good. They've had a few good games at home. This is one spot where they've been okay if you take them with points. But I think it's a good bounce back spot for Arkansas. They've kind of hit a bad lull in their schedule, some bad losses, looked a little sluggish. So I'm with you here. I'm going to lay the 7.5 with Arkansas.
All right, lay the 7.5 with Arkansas here. Maryland, Minnesota. We've got Minnesota 6-point home favorites, 144 the total in this one. Maryland certainly has been there's a bunch of these Big Ten teams that have just been wildly inconsistent, up and down. And I think it's safe to say Maryland's been one of them. No question about that. There's a reason why they're 8-7. They've had some good games. They've had some bad games. They can beat Illinois on the road outright as underdogs, and then they get crushed under their boot by Michigan. 87-63 in their last game. They lose at Indiana on the road. That's not a good road loss there. They lose at Purdue. Yet they beat Wisconsin. So they have wins at Wisconsin and Illinois on the road, and they lose to Purdue, Indiana, Purdue and Indiana on the road. Figure this team out. I mean, it's just they beat two of the better teams in the Big Ten on the road, and they can't beat two of the more weaker teams in the Big Ten on the road. So that's basically been Maryland this year. Very erratic, very inconsistent. I'm staying off this game. I have no interest in it whatsoever. Maybe Minnesota, if I had to lean, they are off a very impressive, dominant blowout win last week against Michigan, so they've had a week off to prepare for this game. So that's going to probably be an edge for Richard Pitino's Minnesota team going into this one. I would lean to laying the points, but I don't know what Maryland we're going to get. We're going to get the Maryland that lost to Indiana on the road. If we do, they'll lose this game and probably not cover either. Or are we going to get the Maryland that won outright at Illinois and Wisconsin, two of the better teams in the Big Ten? If we get that Maryland today, they're probably live in this game and can hang in there and cover this number. So to me, I don't want to guess what teams like this, when they've had such different results, varying results on the road like Maryland has. Conor, what do you think here with the Terps and the Gophers?
I agree with you. Maryland's been hit and miss, and they've had a few big road wins. There's one spot where I like Minnesota. I laid it with them here. They're 6.5 sixes, but now the William Hill circa, there's 5.5s. I got a 5.5. You can get that. I think Minnesota, this is the spot at home in the barn. I like them here. It seems they shoot the ball better. They just, when they're on the road, I really don't touch them. I've learned that's not a spot I want to be, but I think this is small enough. I mean, at 5.5, I think they get the cover here. So I like Minnesota here a bit, minus 5.5.
Yeah. John, with a question, what were your thoughts on the Houston game? I skipped it personally because we can only do so many games, and I'm trying to stick to the biggest games on the card on the Saturday. We can't break down every game.
We can't. Real quick, I like the under in it, just real quick, and I think it's a little too many points, but I lean under.
It's a little too many points, but I just swear off betting against Houston, really, for the most part. I mean, it's difficult. One time I did, and one time I didn't, and I think I split. So, usually it's got to be a damn good reason for me to go against. I don't know if I trust Temple enough. I know they're at home in that game, but it's been a up and down year for them as well. NC State, North Kakalaki next up. North Carolina, 6-point home favorites, 148.5 the total in this one. The total's gone up, I agree. I remember being on the over in the first meeting between these two teams earlier this season, and that game pretty much sailed over the total with some room to spare. I think it's probably a good chance we see that. Over is 5-0 in NC State's last 5 road games as well. In fact, the over's 4-1 in their last 5 games overall. You look at this North Carolina team. Offensively, they're flowing right now. 81-75 win against Syracuse. Even in the Florida State loss, a good defense on the road. You scored 75. You shot 27 of 62. That's still pretty good. And then you beat Wake 80-73 in your last game. 3 straight overs for this North Carolina team. You look at, again, the series history with the Wolfpack and the Tar Heels. NC State's given North Carolina some challenges in the past, but to me, when you look at it, I think North Carolina's really starting to peak a little bit right now. Laying 6 at home, tough in a rivalry game. I'd lean a little bit to North Carolina, but my bigger opinion here in this game, the one I like more, is the over. I think 148.5 with the way North Carolina has really started to surge offensively lately. That's a good way to go. C-Mac, what do you think here? NC State, North Carolina.
Yeah, you're right. Both teams have gone over the total here a little bit lately. In these games, I took NC State earlier in the year, and they outright won. I don't like how they're playing as much right now, and Carolina's playing a bit better. I think it's too many points. It's not my favorite look, but I got a small bet on NC State plus the 6.5. I think they can keep it a bit close. This is one I wish you have 8, here, maybe 8.5, but I think they can keep it close, the Wolfpack, so I took the 6.5.
All right, next up, we've got Baylor and Oklahoma State. Big 12 action. Baylor, 9-point road favorites, 145, 146 the total. Be careful of Baylor and -9 in this spot. They're off a huge win for them. Kansas has basically dummied them in the past, and they were going into that game with a point to prove. Like, we're sick of this from this Jayhawks team. We're finally better than you. We think we're better than you, and we're going to show that we're better than you. And they did. That was a triple-circled game on Baylor's schedule. Huge win. Just handicapping 101, Conor says, this is not the spot I'm looking to lay, 9 points with Baylor on the road after their biggest win of the season. I'm just not going to do it, period. And Oklahoma State at home, we've seen them at times compete, battle, give teams problems on this home floor. I like it. Gallagher-Iba Arena. here in Stillwater. Oklahoma State, you look at their home record, they're a solid 4-2 straight up at home. You look at their home results. They beat Kansas in their last home game as home dogs, 75-70. They did lose to TCU and West Virginia at home as well. You do have to keep that in mind. Not as good, but when on their best day, they're capable. They beat Texas Tech in overtime. They beat Kansas at home. And you look at Baylor. Okay, they played a whale of a game against Kansas, and yet they still got backdoored in the game in the final seconds. Baylor laying 8.5 in that game. There is no bargain in the betting markets and in the point spread with Baylor right now. People know how good they are. People know how they're a national title contender. I think if you're going to rush to bet Baylor at this time of year, you're going to finish the season in the red. You're going to lose money betting Baylor every game the rest of the way. There's just no value. I can't say I love Oklahoma State here, but if I had to choose a side and I was forced to bet it, I'd be on Okie State here, getting the 9. I don't think it's a plus spot at all for Baylor. Connor, what do you think here?
This one was tough. This is one where I want Oklahoma State all the time. For some reason, I'm taking Baylor in the spot, and I don't know why. I'd want points here. I like how Oklahoma State has played. They folded down the stretch in games. I think it's a little high. It's not one of my favorite looks. If you get it at 8.5, I was on Kansas and got lucky in that cover their last game. So it's just a small play on Baylor. I think they're just dominant here. I'm worried because
they are really, really, really good. I mean, there's no denying that whatsoever.
I'm worried. Kind of a morning game. This is it's tough because this is such a game you'd want Oklahoma State in, like, for my capping that I would do almost double digits. Sleepy game in the morning. That could be a tight one because they're going to have a tight one coming down the stretch. Maybe it's at Texas coming up on their schedule. One, you know what I mean? There's going to be one here on the road where they have a tight one. I don't know if it's here. It's just a small play at Baylor at 8.5. And now I see some 9s. Just small lean.
And the thing you got to keep in mind too, Baylor was laying 5.5 on the road at Oklahoma State last year. They won and they covered, but they won by 7 in that game. And now they're laying 9. And if they only win by 7 here, Oklahoma State's going to get the money. That, like I say, I don't know if I have the guts to bet against Baylor. They've been that good, but I would absolutely lean to the home dog in that one. Next up, a good one in the Big East here. We've got Providence and Villanova. Villanova, 11-point home favorites, 140 the total in this one. I'm leaning Providence here, getting these 11 points. I'd cashed a ticket against Villanova earlier this week, taking Seton Hall against them, and Seton Hall should have won that game. All right, they kind of blew it down the stretch, and Villanova escaped by the skin of their teeth with a win in their first game in a month, and that's part of the handicap for me, taking Seton Hall the other night. Villanova not sharp, not crisp in their first game in a month, and that's exactly what we saw in that escape over Seton Hall. Jay Wright said it. We were sloppy with the basketball. We didn't really shoot well. Our defense just wasn't, as good as it would be. Now the question is one game enough to shake the rust off, and is it back to just the old Villanova that was really coming on strong, playing great basketball? Gillespie, Robinson, Earl, and company on this Villanova team were really playing good before the hiatus and blowing out teams left and right. Then all of a sudden they have the hiatus, they come back and they barely beat Seton Hall and fail to cover. And, Providence, this is sometimes the best point spread role for Providence. This is where Ed Cooley's team thrives. Look at these results when they step up in class on the road against good teams. Seton Hall, road dog, win outright. Xavier, 4-point dog, lose by 1, but they cover. Creighton in the last game win outright as 10-point dog, 74-70. And there's no letdown after beating Creighton, not when you play Villanova. That's not a letdown spot when you play Villanova. Providence will be ready. Providence will be fired up. I'm going to look to take the 11 here with the Friars in this one. Connor, what do you think?
I'm right with you. Like you said, Ed Cooley special. It's just too many points. It's just 11's too much. Villanova, top 5 team, I think. And look to Providence first half. Villanova has not been a very good first half team. They've been not good at all in the first half, and they've had a lot of big.
Before the hiatus, they were like that, yeah.
before the break, they were. So maybe look towards that Providence first half as well. But I like the full game plus 11. I'll take those points to Providence.
All right, next up we've got Texas A&M, Ole Miss. Ole Miss 8.5 point favorites, 125 the total. Ole Miss beating up Mississippi State, but prior to that, this team was struggling. They were not playing very good basketball, and I certainly don't trust them laying 8.5 here. A&M we know is not a great offensive team. Their defense at times can step up and play well. They're going to have to obviously pay attention to Devontae Shuler here for Ole Miss. That guy had a hell of a game the other night against Mississippi State. Got to make sure you keep him in check if you're Buzz Williams and this Aggies team. But I just can't see laying 8.5 with Ole Miss. I know they're off that nice win, but I'm looking at the A&M side there. C-Mac, anything for you in this game?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too much bias. Ole Miss looked really good their last game against Mississippi State, but I don't know. You get 8.5 here, a few places, DraftKings, and Texas A&M's made me pull out my hair. I can't get right with him. Buzz, come on, Buzz, driving me crazy. But if there was one spot I'm looking at this game, I might make a play on A&M, especially if it gets to 8.5. I don't know if it touches 9, but I'd look to A&M with the points. I don't know if Ole Miss is that much better. We'll see if they're really starting to play good basketball. They always they have that great game the last few years, and they go and they'll come back to, SEC type action, like, Florida, Georgia, these teams kind of up and down, LSU. So I grab the points if you're playing this one.
All right, we go to the ACC. We've got Duke and Louisville. We've got Louisville 2.5 point home favorites there at the Yum Center, KFC Yum Center, total 141 in this game. Look, here we go again. We're going to talk about it. Duke on the road. You can't bet them. It's just impossible at this point. It's very difficult, but damn near impossible. That Notre Dame road win, okay, but other than that, losing at Virginia Tech, losing at Pitt, just not very good. I think we have to admit this is just not a great Duke team this year. Okay, it's just not. This is not the RJ Barrett teams of the past. It's not the Kyrie Irving teams of the past. They don't have that caliber of talent up and down this roster this year. They just don't, and it's showing. And there's now all of a sudden major concern that this is not going to be an NCAA tournament team, and it's fueled after that loss to Pitt. That loss to Pitt should put Duke beyond the bubble. That should put them out, that loss. That's a hideous loss for them against Pittsburgh. I should like Louisville, and I definitely lean Louisville here, but they're not in great form right now either. I mean, that was a ugly, pathetic loss for them against Florida State at home, and that's supposed to be a spot where you were supposed to get their A game after losing to Miami before that. To me, it's not a cinch here that Louisville just shows up and win this game. But to me, it's the lesser of two evils is Louisville. I cannot and will not back Duke here. So for me, it'll be a small bet, if anything, on Louisville. But again, I just wish the Cardinals, something's not right with Chris Mack's team right now either for some reason. But still, their struggles are in the short term. Duke's struggles have been all year. So, I would still lean with the home team here, Louisville minus 2.5. Connor, what do you think here?
Yeah, we need a return of the Mac. We need Chris Mack to get these guys going. I got it at 2.5. I see 3s now. I got to still go with Louisville. Duke just they're just not very good right now. I don't know if they maybe will be here coming down the stretch this next month, play a little bit better. If it starts hitting 3.5, 4, I don't like it. I think a lot of money's coming in on Louisville, but they just haven't looked good. I watched that last game. They need to get it together, but I think at home here, they should. I think they can cover this one. It's small enough. And Duke, to me, they don't have the shooters, and defensively, they're just not very good. I lean a little bit towards the over here, 141.5 as well. I think this one could get up and over the total.
All right. Next up on the slate, we've got, let me just see, Ohio State, Wisconsin. Wisconsin 5 point home favorites, 133 the total. We've still got a lot of big games to talk about, so I'm going to pick up the pace here. This one's tough. I mean, Ohio State finally had a setback earlier this week against Duke, or against Purdue, I should say. We're singing the praises basketball team that look at how they're playing with these key players out, C.J. Walker among them. And look at how they're still winning games, covering numbers, and doing it in impressive fashion. Rutgers, Northwestern, Illinois. They finally lost one against Purdue, 67-65 at home. Now you got to face this Wisconsin team who on their home floor has been a pretty difficult team to beat. Other than Maryland, that looks like a fluke, an anomaly that they lost at home to Maryland as favorites. Other than that, they beat up Minnesota. They beat Indiana. They crushed Northwestern in their last game. So this is going to be a good challenge here for this Ohio State team. So and which one will we get here? Because they beat Illinois, beat Rutgers, 2 good road wins, but then they lost to Minnesota and Northwestern on the road as well, and Purdue, this Ohio State team. This is a tough game. C.J. Walker might be back here for Ohio State, and that certainly will help them. If he's in, I might lean Ohio State here +5 in this game, but just don't make a habit of betting against Wisconsin at home here at the Kohl Center. And they are laying less points than they normally do at home. I think betting markets onto the fact that Ohio State's been on this little uptick and surge the last few weeks. So it's a game I'm going to be interested to watch, but no bet for me as of right now. C-Mac, what's your take?
No bet for me as well right now. I lean Wisconsin. I like them a lot better here at home. The big thing, like you said, Ohio State with Walker being out, these injuries they've had, they've played pretty well on the road. I can't get over that bad loss to Purdue last week. That was rough. My lean would be, or I haven't gotten there, would be Wisconsin and lay the 5, but it's not my favorite look on the board.
All right, next up, Dayton VCU. Let's go to A10. This is one of the better games in the conference this season. We've got VCU 5.5, 6-point home favorites here. Boy, VCU shit the bed in the second half against St. Bonaventure. I was happy to see that because I had St. Bonaventure in that game. I was finally on the right side of one of those second half collapses in that game. Horrible second half for VCU in that one. You would think they'll be chomping at the bit, looking to bounce back here. And I wouldn't step in front of VCU here. They're 5-1 straight up at home, 4-2 against the spread. Dayton has been obviously not the team they were last year, and they're not supposed to be. You know, Jalen Crutcher's the only main cog back, and they lost a lot from that group last year. They haven't necessarily played great consistently this year, start to finish. They lose at home to LaSalle. It's a terrible loss. They lose at Fordham, which is a huge, terrible loss anytime anybody loses to Fordham, and Dayton did that. However, let's also give Dayton and Anthony Grant's team some credit. They've turned it around since then and looked a lot better, closer. They're not Dayton of last year, but closer, you know, to the kind of team they were last year. They beat Davidson on the road in overtime. That's a nice win. They beat Duquesne and covered the number, and they beat up on George Washington in their last game, 67-54. So all of a sudden, Dayton 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the spread, but they haven't played anybody yet really in conference play that's as good as VCU. So this is going to be their true test here. Betting markets don't seem to think they're ready for this test because VCU's taken all the money. And with them off the second half collapse against St. Bonaventure, I could see why they're looking that way. I would lean to VCU here, but it's for me, I'm going to just pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see if Dayton really has righted the ship. Today's going to prove that here, how they play in this one. Conor, what do you think here with Dayton, VCU?
Yeah, today is going to prove it. I have this one circled. I don't know if I'm going to get to the window. VCU, you're right, just collapsed the second half in the St. Bonaventure game. That was rough. At 6, if this goes a little higher, I'm going to look towards Dayton, which is wild. I have them against Fordham. I haven't touched them. They've had those good wins, as you said. Come on. I can't believe that game happened. I think I'm going to sit this one out, but I maybe lean with the points with Dayton. Maybe a 6 or it gets to 7. I think they can hang around. I'm not very impressed with VCU. I think they're maybe next year they'll be a little bit better. They got a young group, but just a lean with Dayton +6.
All right, just a lean with Dayton in that one +6 for Conor. On we go. UCLA and Stanford. UCLA 5-point road favorites, 138.5 the total. Stanford supposed to play USC the other day. Had that game canceled because there was a lot of concerns about USC going into that game, but they're back and ready to play here against UCLA. UCLA, to me, I'm not standing in front of them. I like the way they're playing right now. the Bruins. They keep on getting the job done. It's been very impressive to see how they continue to play, even though with the significant injury that was suffered earlier this year for this Bruins team. Yet finding ways to keep winning games here. And Stanford has kind of cooled off after a nice start to the season. Lean here to UCLA, but I didn't get involved in it. Connor, did you?
No, not yet. The injuries with Stanford, I'm going to wait on this one. I want a few more. I'd look at Stanford, but I got to wait to see who's in and out. I might play this one later.
Yeah, Gas Station Sushi, welcome in the chat. Tune into that horse show, 1 p.m. I think they're doing one today on Pub Sports Radio. Yep. I tuned into one earlier this week. They're doing good work. I mean, you're seeing them hitting these tries and these exactas, and they know the jockeys, they know the trainers, they know the horses in the current form, and what type of track surface, whether it's Chucktown as they call it, and Penn, and Santa Anita, Saratoga. It doesn't matter the horse track. They know the background of it, and they do their research. These aren't guys throwing darts. On the horse show, they know what they're doing. They've researched it. They know their stuff. So it's worth tuning in, and they can probably put a few bucks in your pocket. So definitely tune into the horse show later today. I might do that as well because I'm just sticking around home all day watching sports. So maybe I'll get the stream going in the background with that. Next up, we've got, as we go down the card here, Mississippi State and Alabama back to the SEC. Alabama 9-point home favorites, 149 the total. Yeah, it's just I do not bet against Alabama until further notice for me. So I'm going to keep the analysis short and sweet. In fact, I'm probably going to lay the 9 here. I mean, Mississippi State, what the hell was that earlier this week against Ole Miss? Do we trust Mississippi State on the road against the hottest team in not only the SEC but maybe the entire country right now? Alabama, the way they're playing. And you keep waiting if you're betting against Alabama, you're just saying, you know what, it's a flat spot. But they haven't had a flat spot in weeks. Where's the flat spot? Where have they been flat? When have they been just not on their game? What they did to LSU was unbelievable. They didn't just beat LSU. They completely destroyed, embarrassed, and urinated on them on their own home court in that game. I'm not going against Alabama. They've got it on blazing hot right now. In fact, I might lay the 9. I haven't decided yet, but I'm, right away, it's a one-way game, Bama or pass for me. What do you think, Connor?
I agree. I mean, why bet against them? Yeah, you're just waiting for the flat spot. They will happen. I don't know about here. And Mississippi State, they just threw up a bad one. I mean, against Ole Miss, that was horrible. I was on Mississippi State -2. They didn't get off the bus. It's Alabama for me too. I haven't bet yet, but I think I'm going to lay the 9 here. That'd be the only way to look right now. The way they're playing, they're just rolling on all cylinders. Man, they can shoot the 3. And if they can shoot the 3, I think they can cover this 9 right here against Mississippi State.
LSU, Kentucky. Kentucky 1.5-point home favorites, 147. Kentucky's back home. That's the good news. They're finally away on the road where they've really had problems. But I still don't trust this team. They're struggling. They're just not closing games properly. On the flip side, though, LSU on the road, I'm not really in love with that. This is not necessarily a good team. It's a terrible defensive team. It's a team that's got talent, obviously, can shoot the ball. They've got some size as well, good perimeter game. But, boy, they can just completely just shut it off defensively. And if that happens, they might be in some trouble here. In theory, Kentucky, this is a winnable game for them at home. They're just in a price range where they have to win the game in order to cover the number. They just don't have the guts to do it and take Kentucky. And I don't want LSU either, so it's a pass for me. Connor, did you find anything here, LSU, Kentucky?
I lean Kentucky a little bit at home, but I don't like this one a lot at all. What I do like is LSU doesn't play any defense, and even an offensively challenged Kentucky team a little bit. I think we can get over the 147 here. So I'm looking at the over in this one.
Yeah, you know what? That might be LSU leaks points to pretty much anybody.
Everybody. Yeah.
And the question is, can Kentucky finally make some damn shots? I mean, some of their offensive performances lately, the Alabama game, the Auburn second half on the road where their shooting just completely evaporated. I mean, that just tells you all you need to know about Kentucky. Just like Duke. I mean, these two teams are like mirror images. They don't have the talent they did in years past. Yeah, Olivier Sarr and a couple of guys on this team this year, decent players, but I just don't think they are one of those teams that you can say, wow, this is an abundance of talent compared to years past for either Coach Cal or Coach K. And I think we're seeing that right now. Next up, as we go on down the card here, let's see. Next up, I'm just going to pick out because we were tight for time. We've only got about 15 minutes left, 10 minutes left. So got to make sure we pick some. Georgia Tech, Virginia. We'll go with that one. Virginia, 8-point home favorites, 123, 124 the total. This is a price range I don't like betting against Georgia Tech in. Road underdogs, getting points. They're feisty. They're pretty good defensively, but man, does it not look like Virginia's starting to round into form right now? They are really starting to put it together, both ends of the floor. You know, I told you that Sam Hauser, the transfer from Marquette, was going to make this team a better offensive team, and we're seeing that. They're shooting the ball. They're finally starting to score points to go along with that suffocating, stifling pack line defense under Tony Bennett. They're rolling right now. It's really tough. I want to take these points with Georgia Tech. I don't know if I want to stand in front of Virginia, so it's tough. It's a pass for me as of now. Connor, what do you say here with Georgia Tech, Virginia?
I'm going to take the points with Tech here. I like how Virginia's playing, but off that big win, Tech the other night, I think they can hang around in this one. I think it's too many, so I'm going to take the 8 with Tech in this one. I think they keep it close. I think this is a dogfight, in the low 60s. So I'll grab the points with Tech.
All right, like in Tech, yeah, I lean that way too for Georgia Tech. I don't know if I don't want to go against. Don't love going against Virginia here in this spot, but for Georgia Tech to me I prefer taking the points for sure than laying them. Next game on the slate, as we're down to the last couple that we're going to talk, Missouri and Tennessee here. Tennessee 8.5-point home favorites, 131, 131.5 the total. Man, Tennessee's been leaking oil. I think that's the best way to say it here in conference play. And, people were just obviously gushing about this team preseason, talking about all the returning experience they had, talking about how this team was going to be a team that, surefire national title contender, and talent-wise and experience-wise, they still could be, but they've had a couple head-scratching performances. I mean, losing to shorthanded Florida on the road, 75-49, like really? Like Florida with all the injuries they had in that game, Scotty Davis and company, and you lose to them 26, head scratcher. And let's not forget, they lost to Alabama at home, although that loss looks pretty good now when you see what Alabama's doing. But those are the two losses. That last one's a head scratcher to me. Question is, can we trust Missouri on the road here to compete? And their road results, other than a bad one against Mississippi State, they've played pretty well on the road. They destroyed A&M on the road. Beat Arkansas by double digits outright as underdogs, beat Wichita State on the road. They've had some good road results, had a nice win against South Carolina at home, 81-70. I think Missouri's going to end up on my card here, Connor, plus 8.5. I think so. I know the one concern is that was such an embarrassment for Tennessee that they're just firing their nostrils today, and they play their A game, and their A game can cover this number. But I wouldn't sell Missouri short. There's a revenge game too for Missouri. They lost at home earlier this year to Tennessee. I think they've improved a lot since then. Pinson and company. Quanzo Martin's not a great X's and O's coach, but neither is Rick Barnes, in my opinion. So I think that's a wash. And usually I'm worried about Martin against a superior coach. He may not be up against one here at Barnes. They win in spite of Barnes. I'm not a Barnes guy when it comes to head coaches. I think Missouri can hang. I'll look to them plus the points. Connor, what do you think here? Missouri, Tennessee?
Me too. I think there's a lot of teams. It happens every year. They come out really great, and they're a top 10, top 5 team, and then they hit conference play, and they can get rattled. And that's been Tennessee. They have just totally looked like a different team right now. Missouri's been steady, and they've played a ton of great teams. I know Tennessee's going to come out fired up. This line is huge, but Missouri's got revenge on their mind, like you said. So I got to grab the points. I think this one's close, unless Tennessee just hits a barrage and it gets, we've seen these blowouts. I've never seen so many, no fans in there. They just get in a lull. It's hard to come back, get yourself up for stuff. But I got to take the points with Missouri. That's the only way to go. I wouldn't feel confident laying them right now at Tennessee. Not here. So
I think it's
points.
I think it's very difficult, to lay points with Tennessee. Especially after what we just saw. How do you lose to three? I think there were three starters out. There were at least two. I think there was three starters out for Florida in that game against Tennessee. And Tennessee, it's one thing to lose, but by 26, that was an ugly game. If you're betting Tennessee, and a lot of people are, because this opened 7, it's up to 8.5. They probably see, hey, it's a bounce back spot, but I'm not necessarily sold on that. All right, that is going to be the end of our breakdown of the main card, the key games from the main card. We can't go through every game. Added board and any games that we didn't hit on the main board, Connor, that you're looking to bet. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
No, but I'll have a bunch more put out on Twitter. I just put some out, and I'll have some more later in the day.
All right, there we go. Yeah, for me, in terms of the main board games that we did not discuss, I cashed with Marshall against Florida International yesterday. They're playing each other again today. Marshall might beat them up good again because Florida International is pretty bad and they're struggling.
You got
and they're
problems
repeatedly. I know people are going to knee jerk maybe to the team that lost the previous game, but I wouldn't want to do that. And Marshall, I think, needs to sweep these two games because they have suffered a lot of losses. They had a tough schedule. They played all the best teams in the Conference USA early in the season in the conference schedule. La Tech and Western Kentucky, and they were playing all the better teams from this. Now they're stepping down in class, and now Marshall can flex their muscle a little bit. I also lean to the over in that game. It stayed under yesterday. I think it could flip and go the other way and go over the total today. SMU's taking money against Central Florida. I think I agree there. Central Florida is really scuffling right now. They've kind of gone on a downturn lately, so I would lean SMU in that game. What else did we not get to? George Mason, St. Joe's. It was a best bet over winner for me the other day. They're playing each other again today, and I'm on that same bet over the total with George Mason and St. Joe's. 145.5 is the total with that game. Let me see what else on the main board that I am looking at. Furman, East Tennessee State. Lean a little bit over the total there. Oh, I am on the over in Utah Valley, St. John's, 154.5. Utah Valley, fast-paced team, offense, not a very good defensive team, though. And you could say the same damn thing about St. John's. They can score, and they're not good defensively. You're going to get pace on both sides. You should get over that total, Utah Valley, St. John's. And let me see anything else in the main board. I'm just looking. St. Bonaventure against Duquesne. Duquesne is still very, very injury depleted, and I know St. Bonaventure, that was a big home win for them, but I like that St. Bonaventure team. I might lay 5.5 against Duquesne today in that one. Bonnies are a good team, and I think they showed it after a terrible first half against VCU at home to come back and just blow them out in the second half of that game. That was dominance by Bonaventure. I would lean to them. As far as the added board goes, I like Norfolk Coppin State over the total, 148. Unfortunately, Bucknell Colgate, I like that game to have points in it as well. It opened 152.5. It's 158.5 now. It's a huge move to the over. So, but I'd still lean over with Bucknell and Colgate. I like Army +3 against Navy. Army-Navy, the basketball version, not the friggin' greatest rivalry in college football. This is the basketball version of Army-Navy. I think Army might be the better team. Army's kind of been disappointing lately, but I think it's a good spot for them getting points against Navy. They can cover in that game. Bellarmine, I think they're worth a look against Stetson to bounce back. Stetson kind of surprised them yesterday. I think Bellarmine can win that game today. So those are and McNeese and Houston Baptist over 161. I have to. Houston Baptist is just an over machine. McNeese State will run with them. That's a game that probably has some points in it as well. So that's my looks on the main board and added board, the games we didn't talk about. Connor, let's get to best bets. Before we do, what do we got with our sponsors today?
Just if everyone needs an extra book, you got to have multiple books. Go to mybookie.ag, hit promo code PubSports. You get 50% off your deposit if you use debit or credit, and you get 100% off if you use Bitcoin. Use the Bitcoin. You put $1,000, you get $1,000. You got to just minimum's $100. So if you put in 100, they'll give you 100. Go to mybookie.ag at promo code PubSports. Need a bulk up? Go to bulksupplements.com, hit promo code PubSports, get all the creatine, protein you need. And go to builtbars.com, hit promo code Pub Sports. You get 20% off your order. They got good snack bars. They're really good. Coconut, double chocolate, mint brownie. Builtbar.com, promo code Pub Sports.
I wish I could answer that, Star Child. I'm predominantly an over better when it comes to all sports, including college basketball. So you said, what game did you just say lean over? I think I just said over in a bunch of them. So I can't remember which one you were specifically referring to. So there's a bunch of them, though. I mean, go back and rewind and you'll hear them because you can do that. That's always important to point out. It's if you missed any part of what we said during the show, you can go back and watch after for sure. All right, best bet. I'm going to start with a best bet today. Let me just see. This is I'm going to stick with it in this game. Let me just now I've lost my position here. Hold on. That's what happens when you got a million windows open here.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with it here. In spite of the fact they're betting this team, Tennessee, that is. Missouri plus 8.5. I mean, I think there's something wrong with Tennessee. There's got to be something wrong when you lose the way you did against Florida. And I think Missouri, it's a huge game for them. They're not assured of the tournament yet. I know they have a nice overall record. They're solid and decent conference record. They need a showing in this game to really put themselves on the map for the NCAA tournament as a possible team that can be in it. I think you get Missouri's best, and their best effort might be enough here to get inside the number and compete. I think they will. And Tennessee, to me, you can't tell me there's not something wrong when you're as good as you are talent-wise. You go on the road to Florida without 3 starters, the Gators, in that game, and you lose by 26. There's something off with Tennessee. Give me Missouri plus 8.5 against Tennessee. That'll be my college basketball closing time best bet. Connor, what do you got for us? Best bet.
I like that bet a lot as well. You mentioned earlier, I'll throw this one. I like St. Bonaventure laying that 5, but I'm going to go with another team that's going on the road, catching the same amount of points. I'm going with Georgia Tech plus 8. I think they keep it close with Virginia. So give me Georgia Tech plus 8.
Yeah, I will give you better than that. 8.5 is out there right now. So Georgia Tech
there was 8.5
against Virginia. Best bet. Providence came close to being a best bet for me as well.
I like that as well.
11.5. But I don't know. Part of me still thinks Villanova shakes the rust off, and if they play well, they're very, very dangerous.
They
but
could get hot. Yeah.
Yeah, I still think Providence is the side there. All right, that'll wrap it up. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Great stuff. We appreciate it. Everybody in the chat for tuning in. Over 127 viewers.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
We really appreciate that. That's got to be close to a record for this show. We really do appreciate it. That's why we're doing these shows, hoping you get some great info and can make some money in the process. Reminder, NFL closing time, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. We're going to break down the Sunday conference championship games, Bucks, Packers, Chiefs, Bills. We're looking forward to it. Sunday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We're here for the NFL Conference Championship closing time show right here on Pub Sports Radio. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Saturday. Enjoy the games and good luck. We'll see you tomorrow for the NFL closing time show right here on Pub Sports Radio.